he has founded a ministry called Love Without Reason. We want to find out why is that ministry called Love Without Reasons. And I met him when he was ministering at one of the churches in Lilongwe under Pastor Felix Nyika at Kairos International Ministries. When I heard the story, I thought it's an interesting story that the Malawians need to hear. We don't usually do this in our program. We don't usually talk about faith issues because we are a public broadcaster. But this is a story that I want us to look into and to have a discussion. Welcome to Malawi and welcome to Speak Out.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Exactly. And Mr. Santos is a founder of a ministry that you're calling Love Without Reason. What does that mean?
The word itself says...
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Because you can't love without a reason. There has to be...
It's not humanly possible.
There has to be a reason why you want to love somebody else.
Exactly. Love is always conditional.
Yes.
When you look at it from the worldly perspective.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of the Godhead, look at God. God loved us before we first loved him. Mm-hmm. And that he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to come to this world to die for us. We who did not like him, we who were enemies, we who were ungodly, but he loved us. It's just mind-boggling to think about how much that love means, that he would come down to find us while we didn't deserve it, while our sins had turned us away from God. But God came to find us, and he came to love us and brought us out of there and set us in a place where we could move forward in our daily life and even in our spiritual life. So to me, love without reason is that unconditional love that comes from God, and God says, because I've loved you, you love the others, love people. And it's a very unique concept, love your enemy, love your neighbors.
Yeah. We don't usually do faith issues in our program because this is a public broadcast.
Sure, absolutely.
And we are here to serve people of different faiths. Mm-hmm. But your story, Mr. Mathews, is a very interesting story because you, in the Love Without Reason, you are doing medical camps on the cleft, you call them cleft palates?
Yes.
Children that are born with disabilities,
right,
on their mouth or anything, on their face. And I hear you got a story why you had to find this particular ministry of Reasons Without Love. Or Love Without Reason.
Love Without Reason.
Yes.
Keeping aside the spiritual aspect, when you look at people in this world, we were talking about people that have cleft lip and palates. Nobody loves them because their faces are deformed, they're disfigured, and according to the world, they look bad. They are not deserving of love. We also fight human trafficking, where there are women who are sold into human trafficking networks. And they're sold for their bodies, they're not sold, so nobody loves those people that are in that strata. So Love Without Reason was founded.
Love Without Reason is also tackling human trafficking.
Absolutely, yes. We are, and I will share with you a little bit on that because we have learned that children that are born with these facial deformities are also trafficked into human trafficking networks.
How?
Because, you find a child that has these facial deformities, and this child cannot go to school. This child is not accepted by society. They are considered to be a curse. They're ostracized, humiliated. And because of that, they can't go to school. They can't get a job. They can't get married. They become a burden to the household. So in many countries, what happens is that these children are sold. The traffickers, they come and prey on the vulnerable. So this is a child that is considered to be useless. No education, no worth, no value. And therefore, why don't you give us this child so this child can go and work and earn a living for you, and that money can be sent to the family to take care of the other children. So it's basically this sacrifice of one child to take care of the others. So these children are sold into sex trafficking networks. Yes, their faces are messed up, but traffickers don't care. They're sold into bonded labor.
Yeah.
Then they're sold into beggary, where they.
What
can
is bonded labor?
Bonded labor could be, they could be forced to work.
Okay.
In really hazardous conditions, where they have no option to walk away or things like that.
Yeah.
They're not paid. They're just slavery. They're just slaves in that bonded labor. They are sold into beggary, where they will have to beg on the street. So a child with a perfect face will not yield as much money as a child with an imperfect problems.
Right.
So therefore, they probably would make more money. They're sold as child brides into child marriages, and we have instances of that among our patients. A lot of these children that are born with facial deformities.
What is child bride?
Somebody who's forcibly sold to be married at ages below the legal age.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have the worst part that we have heard and we have worked with is that there are children that have these facial deformities. Their faces are messed up, their eyes, their cornea, their lungs, their heart, their kidneys. It's all perfect, and so when all those things are perfect, they can be sold into organ harvesting networks. So they are sold for their organs. So children with these kind of facial deformities are also sold into these human trafficking. These are all different forms of human trafficking. And so that's how we entered into the anti-human trafficking phase, where we not only do these surgeries, and that prevents these children from being sold, but also we were able to go and rescue actually women that are in slavery in different countries. So we go in there and we either rescue them from their brothels, or we teach them, we give them education, trying to teach them how to read and write and different business sustainable skills and all those things. So that's how we fight human trafficking.
Yeah. Now coming back to my earlier question, this is connected to your own personal life.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
I'm married to my wife, my lovely wife. Her name is Susan Mathews. We were married about 26 years ago, and we have 3 children. Our oldest one is with the Lord, and I've got a daughter and a son. So Philip, Sarah, Caleb. These are my 3 children.
Right.
So when my wife was pregnant with our first child, Philip. When we went to the doctor's office, the doctor told us that the child has many problems, and told us to go to a specialist and try to, figure out what needs to be done for those problems. We went to the specialist, and the specialist asked Susan to lie down, and he started doing the scan. And as he started to scan her, he scanned for about 2 hours, and during the scan, he said that this child has got major problems. Starting with, the child has a cleft lip, which is an open lip, and a child has a cleft palate, which is the inside of the mouth, which is open, meaning from the front all the way to the back. The palate is completely open. The child has a small jaw, which is not fully connected to his mandible here. The child has holes in it. First they said a large hole. Then the echocardiologist, the echocardiogram that the cardiologist did said that there are so many holes that they could not count the number of holes. Then the doctor said all of these are major problems, but the bigger problem is that the baby does not have a stomach. And because the baby doesn't have a stomach, there is no way that the child would live.
In the formation of in the womb.
In the womb, yes. She was about 5.5 months pregnant at that time. So
you went to do the scanning.
Yes.
And then that's where you found out
all these issues. And the baby should have been at a phase where all of these organs were supposed to have formed.
Yes.
Because it was already 5.5 months into the pregnancy.
That's what I wanted to ask. Maybe it was not yet to that stage.
That stage, no. Yeah. No, this was well beyond that stage.
Right.
So the doctor told us that the child will die. Either the reason for the absent stomach could either be that there is no stomach at all, or maybe the stomach is lodged in the rib cage, would have gone through a hernia and lodged in the rib cage. And he's like, but I've spent about 2 hours trying to find the stomach, but I could not find it. They did these high density scans in America where you can, pretty much see quite a bit. So the doctor told us that not only that, my wife had a condition where she had excess amniotic fluids. And so that's also a very rare condition. And so she could die. And if she continues with the pregnancy, the child will surely die because there is no stomach, one. Yeah. And if there is a stomach, and if it is lodged in the rib cage, which is all suppositions, then when the baby is born alive, the baby can't breathe because there's no room for the lungs to expand and contract. So the best recommendation was to abort the baby. You either save your wife or they both die.
Yeah.
So
you need to choose one.
You need to choose one. Yeah. This is the choice that was presented before us.
Yeah.
We told the doctor, my wife was very adamant. We believe children are a gift from God. And so my wife told the doctor, no matter what, we are going to believe that this child is a gift from God and we're going to continue with the pregnancy. So the doctor told us, take some time to think about it, evaluate it, and come back. So we went home and we started to go through our process of mourning, so to speak. It's a very, very difficult situation. It's your first child, and you're in love with the baby already, and there's so much excitement, and all of a sudden everything is gone. Yeah. So as we were in our room, in our house, on the floor, praying and crying, our pastor came to our house. His name is Pastor Abraham. He came home and he was praying with us, and he just said something that really just changed our entire outlook. There is a story in the Bible. It talks about this man, this prophet. His name is Jeremiah. He goes to the house of a potter. A potter is making pot out of clay. Yeah. And so as he's making it, it got broken in the hands of that potter. Yeah. Why that happened, the Bible doesn't say it. Maybe the clay was imperfect. Maybe the pot, the wheel had an issue. We don't know. But what happens is he doesn't take the clay and throw it away, but he takes the same clay and he refashions it into a newer vessel that seemed good to God. Right. And so the pastor said, that child is like clay in the hands of the potter. You need to give it a chance. And so we were presented with these two options. Yeah.
The mother and the baby.
And the baby. Yeah. So what do we do? And so at that point, it was when we heard that story, it connected with us. And sometimes these things are random things that God uses to help lift our faith, I think, So at that moment, it was a very special moment where we made a decision that no matter what, we're not going to abort this baby, because this baby is a gift from God, and this baby is as clay in the hands of the potter. Let the potter do what he wants to do. That's his decision. So we went back to the doctor, we prayed about it, and I believe,
By that time, were you pro-life or there's still on this argument about abortion or not abortion? Sure. Your stand at that particular time, or your stand that time was it driven by the past stance that you had?
Okay.
Or this was a new stand that you were making at a particular time?
Okay. Ideologies are different. Yeah. People have different ideologies. But when it comes to the reality of life, ideologies go out of the window, right? Yeah. I mean, here you're faced with a real life scenario where you have to make a decision. Your ideologies is dime a dozen. I mean, people have so many ideas and all that. For us, me particularly, I had no stance. I'm like pro-life, pro-choice. I didn't care. I had come in from India. I didn't have any of these ideologies in my mind. All I knew was that my wife's life was in danger.
This was the situation presented.
Yes. My wife, on the other hand, was a very, I think her stance was pro-life. Her thing was, these children are a gift from God.
Okay.
Me particularly, and I'm very open in these stands. I tell them, I just wanted what my wife wanted.
Yeah.
I loved my wife, and I loved that baby in my wife. But I didn't know the baby, I knew my wife.
Yeah.
You see, as a man, it's a very different perspective. So I knew my wife,
Yeah.
but I didn't know the baby.
Yeah.
So selfishly, I wanted my wife.
Yes.
So I told her, Susan, I will do what you want me to do. I will stand with you no matter what. But whatever decision you make, I will stand with you. And her take was, even if I die, I don't want to take away the life of my child. So that was her stance.
So you respected that stance.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My wife is my companion, my partner, my friend, my lover. And I absolutely respected what she wanted to do, even at the cost of maybe losing her life, you know. So at that point, I didn't have any ideology, so to speak.
Yeah.
I only knew that these were the choices that was presented.
Yeah.
So after a time of prayer, during which I believe that the Lord healed our baby, we went back to the doctor's office. And this time around, he was very adamant. He was like, do you want to abort this baby? Because he was concerned about my wife. And I say this to people, there's no judgmental attitude about people being pro-life, pro-choice, and all that.
Yeah.
Because people have to make a decision in the present. And that momentary, at that moment, there is a lot of choices that are put in front of people. And they make their choices based on that. So I don't stand here saying, oh, this is wrong or that is wrong. Because I've been there in that place and I know how difficult the choice is. It is extremely difficult to make a decision like that. So at that point, as far as we are concerned, the doctor was, he said, you're going to have to seriously consider this. My wife said, we have prayed about it and we believe that God has healed our child. Why don't you scan us? And so he asked her to lay down and he started the scan, and he probably scanned for maybe 5 minutes. He stopped and he looked at us and he was, what have you done to this baby? And we looked at him and we thought the baby was dead, because that's how seriously he asked us that. And we said, we haven't done anything, we just prayed. And, he said, I don't know what you did, but whatever you did, I see the baby's stomach.
Oh.
It's like, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what happened. But the last time I searched for about 2 hours, I couldn't find it. And he pointed to the screen and he showed us like a black spot on the screen, and he said, that is the baby's stomach. I don't know where it came from.
How long was after the first scanning? How long did it take?
It was about 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
It was about 2.5 weeks, during which time we spent some time in prayer. We also met the cardiologist, who also repeated what the specialist had said in terms of not one hole, but countless holes in the heart. So he also recommended that this baby is going to die, So in that span of 2.5 weeks is when all these things transpired. So the man looked at us and said, I didn't have any hope during the first scan, but now there is hope. The child will be born alive. However, the child has so many complications that he may not live long after his birth. He may die right after his birth. We were thankful to the Lord. We were thankful for life. We went through the pregnancy. When I say we, I believe that I'm an equal partner.
Yes. No, for sure.
People make fun of me when I say we, but I feel that I had a role to play too.
I think that's a role of dad to play.
Absolutely.
In families.
Absolutely.
It's not about a mother taking it all.
Right.
But I think it has to be supported
Right.
by the husband or
Right.
the man.
Well, if you impregnate a woman, then a part of you is in her.
Absolutely.
And then, that also means you have to take the responsibility for that.
Absolutely.
So I feel that I had an equal role in that. And so we went through the pregnancy. He was born full term. And He was born, as you will see in the pictures, he was born with a lot of facial deformities. It is one of the hardest things to see a child born with those deformities. He didn't have a right eye. His right eye was kind of closed shut. He didn't have a right ear. He had no. Later on, they did a scan on him, and they said that there's no hearing bones or anything in there. His jaw was not fully formed. He had his cleft lip and has cleft palate. The heart, as the doctor said, there are countless holes in the heart, one large and countless other small holes. So he was already in heart failure. Then the stomach there was not a problem with the stomach. But then he talked about one other major thing. They did a scan on his brain, and they said his corpus callosum is missing. Corpus callosum is the information highway of the brain, you know. So from your left and right hemispheres in your brain, signals goes through the corpus callosum into the body, and that's how your hand-foot coordination, your body's response to the signals from the brain, all of those things happen. And they said that when they did the scan, they couldn't find his corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is missing. So their thought was that this baby is going to be mentally retarded or delayed, and developmentally challenged as well, delayed. So that would mean, what would that mean? That would mean that the baby may never walk, may never talk, may never communicate, will not go to school, will probably be in the bed for the rest of his life. So as a dad, I think this is where I guess we are talking from the perspective of a father. It was one of the most difficult scenarios that I've ever faced. To be honest, I wanted to run away. I don't blame. There are so many dads and parents that run away, dads and moms that run away when they have children like that. To be honest, I was so consumed by fear. My questions were, Lord, what is this? This doesn't look human. As a young dad, how am I going to take care of this child? How will I get its surgery done? What surgery should I do? I mean, it's the whole thing is just overwhelming. I tell people, I had another question right there in the delivery room when the doctor delivered the baby. They cleaned him up and they gave him to me, and I held him in my hands, and I am trembling. I can remember sweat pouring down my face. At the same time, I'm shivering. I am unable to hold this baby, and I'm afraid that I will drop this baby. And these are the questions that are running through my brain. How am I going to take care of this child? What is this? Another question that came up was like, who will marry this child? I mean, he was just born, and I'm thinking
20 years.
20 years, dads, who will marry this child? And I turn over and look, and my wife has her hand out there asking for her baby. And I was afraid to give the baby to her because I thought she will die the moment she sees the baby like that. And I loved her too much that I'm trying to protect her. And I'm looking at this child, and I couldn't. It didn't seem human. And I gave this baby to her, and she took the baby, and I'm watching her because I want to protect her, She took the baby, and she just held the baby close, and she started to say, "Oh, my handsome baby, my handsome boy, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome."
Was she seeing what you were seeing?
We both are seeing the same thing, but same baby, but I saw a whole different picture, while she saw a whole different picture.
Yeah.
What she was able to overlook the deformities, and she saw, as a mother loves her child. You know, the Bible says, even though a mother forgets her sucking child, God says, I will never forget you.
Yeah.
So if a mother's love is like that, then I wonder what God's love is like, no? But I'm just like, is it the same baby we are looking at? Because she's saying he is handsome, and I am looking at a baby that is completely deformed. Perspectives, you see, these are things, and they took the baby immediately from her, took him into the ICU, and he was in the ICU for the next 31 days.
Yeah.
He couldn't feed, through his mouth because he had this open palate, and food was going into his lungs, and he was being aspirated. Yes, he was aspirating. He was malnourished, and he already had this heart failure, all these holes in his heart.
So the holes were still
Yes.
there at the birth.
Yes, at the time of birth, the holes were still there. And he was in heart failure, so they were expecting him to die any minute. They took him, like I said, and in the first 10 days they tried breastfeeding, they tried bottle feeding, they tried everything, but he was not doing well. His health was failing, and so they finally made a decision to put a tube in his stomach and feed him through the stomach, directly in a tube. That process went on for the next 1.5 years, where we had no other option but to feed him through the tube. So he had nothing through his mouth. And then 30 days later, we came out of the ICU, and then 6 months later, they did a surgery on his lip, his cleft lip. They fixed the lip.
Yeah.
As they were doing that, they told us, hey, we can do the cleft lip surgery because there's not much loss of blood. But when we do the cleft palate surgery, the heart will not be able to, sustain the blood loss that will take place with the cleft palate surgery. So we can't do the surgery until something is done for his heart. So now we are in this dilemma. Lord, what do we do? And so we went and met many doctors. And we had several episodes. We talked to different cardiologists. We went from state to state, hospital to hospital. And in that process, every doctor said, there are so many holes in this child's heart. We cannot fix it. The surgeries cannot be done. So at one point, as I was sharing in the church the other day, since they said it's impossible, we said, you know what? The Bible says one word, what is impossible with man is possible with God. So if that is true, then if all these people said it's impossible, then why don't we look to God?
I'll have to stop you there. I remember this is Speak Out, and I have in the studio Mr. Santhosh Mathews talking to us the reason why he started Love Without Reason ministry. And we were just being overwhelmed by a story here by his firstborn child.
Yes, sir.
And the name is Philip. And we're going to hear more about the story after we come back for a break. Remember, this is a special edition of Speak Out here on MBC. Remember, this is Speak Out here on MBC, and today I have a special guest. He's a motivational speaker, and is Mr. Mathews, Santhosh Mathews.
Santhosh Mathews.
Santhosh Mathews talking to us in this program, Speak Out, and we are hearing a story here, the beginning or the foundation of his ministry calling it love without reason. So I did stop you at some point where you are saying, when things are saying impossible with people, there's somebody else who makes them possible.
Yes. It is mentioned in 3 places in the Bible.
Okay.
What is impossible with man is possible with God. What is not possible with man is possible with God. So in the 3 Gospels, it is mentioned, these 3 things are mentioned. Okay. And so when the doctors kept saying it is impossible, 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 that the holes in the heart can be fixed with a surgery,
Yeah.
the revelation or the understanding that I had, when if the whole world, these eminent doctors are saying that it is impossible, then what can make it possible? The Bible says only God can make it possible. And if God can make it possible, then I need to look to Him. Otherwise, the Bible is not real. This was my take on it, because we were desperate. Emmanuel, we were in a place where we had nowhere else to turn to. Everything was, it's not going to work, it's not going to happen. This child is going to die. Everywhere we turn, it's the same refrain, the child is going to die. We were in a place of desperation. But we also believed that God could do this. There's faith that rose up in us. We laid hands on his heart and we started to pray and we started to speak healing. The Bible says, if you speak to this mountain to be carried and to be put into the sea, it shall be done. Whatever you say shall be done if you do it in faith and not doubting. I'm paraphrasing everything. So, it's called childlike faith. So sometimes, it says that you need to come to a place of childlike faith. And that's where we were. We came to that place thinking that, God, if the whole world says it's impossible, then it is possible with you. So we laid hands on his heart and we started to declare, Philip, in the name of Jesus, we command your heart to be healed. We did that for several days. We went back to the doctor's office. This doctor was following him from the womb, from the womb, where he said that there are so many holes. When we went to the doctor's office after this revelation, this understanding, as we entered in, he said, guys, we can try to do something for the big, large hole. We'll try to fix that hole. But, I don't think he will survive. We heard what he said, and then he laid the baby and he started to scan him. And, Philip was a very loud baby. He would cry all the time. Right. And so as he was scanning him, this baby
how old was he?
By this time he was about 8 months, 8, 9, maybe 10, 8, 9, 10 months, like that. So he was crying and this man was trying to scan him, trying to do the echocardiogram and all those things. And he was listening to his heart and all. And all of a sudden he turns around and he tells us, I don't know what you guys have been doing, but I don't hear any murmur. I don't hear any sounds, because if there's holes in the heart, you can hear the murmurs that's happening. He's like, I don't hear anything. And we were like, he said, what did you do? We said, we've been doing nothing. We've been giving him the medicines to, because his heart was getting enlarged. And so they were giving medicines to just reduce that, to drain out the excess liquid and all that. We're just doing that. Other than that, nothing else. We are praying. He said, I don't know what you did, but whatever you did, it is working. So come back in another few weeks. So we went back in another few weeks, and this time he confirmed that there are no holes in the baby's heart. He said, I can hear a very faint murmur, so I'm going to continue to watch this kid. And so he continued to watch him for the next, I think, 3 or 4 years, at which point he said, this baby has got no heart problems. It's completely normal. Don't even come back here. I share this story, and sometimes when I listen to myself, it seems as if it is too good to be true.
Yes.
I thank God.
Yes, exactly. First time I heard you at Kairos International Ministry, I thought this story is too good to be true.
Exactly. I myself have a hard time some days sharing my story. Sometimes I would go to places and share my story, and my translator with me would look at me with such
Absolutely.
till the time they see the pictures and then the medical records, because this was all of this happened in the U.S. The hospital that we were in is called Erlanger Hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that's where Philip was born. That's where all of his medical records are. That's where all these heart reports, the brain, corpus callosum, all of his surgeries. He had about 25 surgeries. Majority of them was done in that hospital. So having all of those things, so I can boldly say, hey man, these things really did happen,
Exactly.
Yeah. So we went from there to his heart being completely healed to a place where he still had mental retardation because of that, his corpus callosum not there. And then he had a hard time with so many things. And after the heart was healed, and we did the palate surgery, which was successful. There's a doctor named Dr. Larry Sargent who did his surgeries. So those surgeries went well. And after that, they decided that we will put him in a special school for children that have these mental and developmental delays.
Yeah.
So he was in that school for, from age 1, 2, 3, 4, age 5, at which he still was struggling. He had a lot of issues. But then during that time, he couldn't speak for a long time. And so our daughter... So
he was still using one eye?
He was still using one eye.
He had not done operations on the...
No. By then they had removed the cyst from his eye. It was a fluid-filled cyst. They removed that and they put a fake prosthetic eye. And then they put some two hinges into his skull.
Okay.
And then we were able to fix a prosthetic ear.
Okay.
On him, which he had a lot of fun with it, because he would remove that and chase the girls and just walk. so you've got to make the best out of life, you see.
Yeah.
So he had these.
But he was able to walk and run around.
No, he was able to. He was very late in his turning over, in his crawling,
yes,
in his standing. He was extremely late.
Yes.
He was miraculously doing the things that the doctors said he wouldn't do.
Yeah.
We believe it's the power of prayer and the power of faith, and so in terms of his cognitive abilities, in terms of how he reacted with people, his social skills, everything was just totally bad. He couldn't speak, like I said, for a long time, and then a lot of miracles happened. I don't know if I can share all of that, but slowly he started to speak, which we believe that was a total miracle from the Lord. And then when he turned about 5.5 years, that's when the state of Tennessee came and did another evaluation on him. They do it every year. And at 5.5, they did an evaluation and they said, Mr. and Mrs. Mathews, we have been evaluating him all these years. But this year we found something different. This kid does not seem to have any mental retardation.
Oh.
He seems to be just like the other kids. He's not on par with the other kids, but he is above. It seems like he has crossed that stage. Yes. And he's no longer has any mental retardation. Maybe you should take him out of the special school. The special school was called Siskin Children's Institute, which was an amazing school. Take him out of here and put him in a normal school. And so and at a later stage, we did a brain scan on him, and his corpus callosum was still missing.
Oh.
But he did the things that the doctor said he couldn't do.
Yeah.
I don't know how you explain that, other than, God had something to do with it. We took him out of the...
It's mysterious.
Yes, we took him out of the Siskin school and we put him in Westview Elementary, where he started to thrive, He had some slight developmental delays because he didn't have this eye and didn't have the ear.
Yes.
So those are linked to development.
Yes.
But in terms of his mental and cognitive abilities, he started to thrive. He started to do good. He didn't get A grades, but
Yes.
he survived with C and C pluses, and so he did okay. He
Yeah.
passed. He finished his middle school, and then he got. We went and met a school people from a school named Macaulay, which is one of the top 50 schools in the U.S. And they took him in the Macaulay school, and he started to thrive. And during that time, he's continuing to have his surgeries, and at one point he starts to become a motivational speaker. And like at age 10, 9, 10, he starts to travel with us, and he starts to speak about the miracles that happened to him from that age onwards. And he just became a prolific speaker, a tremendous communicator. He would just get on stage and he could speak to thousands of people and have no fear with all of his deformities. So as this was happening, he also developed scoliosis, which is, your back is bent. He had a stance where he had a bent back, but he didn't let that stop him. He just kept moving forward. Yeah. There's a never give up attitude about him. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to hold on to my deformities as a crutch. See, a lot of people, we hold on to our disabilities as a crutch, and we don't want to move forward. Yeah. For instance, when I speak, I tell, Philip could not close his right eyelid because of the prosthetic eye and all those things. And he had obvious scars on his face and all of those things. And he kept moving, while there are those of us who wake up in the morning and we see a pimple on our face.
Say, I want to go out today. I'll stay here up until this pimple goes away.
Exactly. So we are so focused on these silly things.
Well, I'm getting bored, so I'll still apply some chemicals for my hair to come out.
Right. Yeah. I've got a headache. While this kid has gone through 25 surgeries, and he's out there. There was something about Philip that said that I am here for a purpose. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do fast. That kid was about acceleration. He didn't slow down. I mean, it was like we would go into a country, and from the moment we land to the moment we take off on the flight, we are busy doing things, And sometimes I would look at him and wonder, what is the hurry? This guy had a time clock going on in his brain. You ask him the time, he would tell you. It's 10:20, 21 or 9:23. He would not say 9:30 or 10:30 or something. He would be precise with his time. Time is given to all of us, in terms of how we use it. Is something that we all need to learn, I think. Yeah. So we went through so many surgeries. We went through several years of struggles. And when I share my story, people look at it and think of, all the wonderful things that happened. But I don't want people to forget that it was a life of tremendous struggle. Yeah. Struggle in the sense that we had so much pain. We went through so much pain. We went through so much of trauma. My son going through all those surgeries, the other 2 children having to suffer, my wife going through these things. So while we are going through this process is where God puts it in our heart that there are other children like Philip in this world. See, we are so focused on our problems that we forget to see outside of ourselves. There is so much going on. And so our focus then shifted outward. Once we got through those critical stages, we started to focus outward, seeing, hey, there are children in India, there are children in Africa, there are children in different countries, continents that are born like Philip. Thank God Philip was born in America. We had the means to take care of him. There was insurance, there was all those, and then there were skilled doctors that could do it. What about that child in Malawi? Yes. What about that child in Kenya or Tanzania or Uganda? Zimbabwe, how are we going to help them? What's going to happen to them? Because if their palates are not fixed before the age of 2, then they may never be able to speak. These children cannot speak, much less, the feeding issue is a separate issue. So how many voiceless children are in Africa because this problem was not fixed? How many children are suffering and not going to school, and they're being trafficked into human trafficking networks because a simple cleft lip surgery couldn't be done?
But their organs inside them are okay.
Everything else is perfect. All it is a cosmetic surgery that can just. It's not only a cosmetic; it's an essential surgery. Yeah, it's a nutritional issue. Yeah. It's a life issue. Yeah. The fixing of the palate can be a life and death issue. Yeah. There's so many children that die with pneumonia and being aspirated because their palate was not fixed. We can fix it in 1.5 to 2 hours time. The surgery can be done. Focus turned outward, and therefore we started Love Without Reason, to go and find these people who are not loved. Nobody cares about them. Because I know with my son, the pain that we went through, the guilt that my wife and I felt. People all over the world told us that we sinned because our child was born like this. Those kind of guilt feelings. And so we wanted to help. So that's the reason we started Love Without Reason at 2007. We started going to India. We went to different African countries. We started, our first surgery happened in 2012 after 5 years of trying to do one surgery.
There's a story, about 20 minutes about that story I hear. But tell us in brief, what happened for you to start? Because you're not a medical doctor.
I'm not a doctor.
You are an IT master's holder,
right,
of something else.
Well, I did my engineering, electrical electronics engineering. I did my IT. I was in charge of the web infrastructure of a huge company. And then I did my MBA, so that's my background. My wife is a nurse practitioner. But when I went to these places to ask them, hey, can I help another child like my child to do the surgery? And people thought that I was crazy. Why would you leave everything and then do this? I came to a point of complete desperation, decided that I probably did not hear from God. And we were ready to close down the organization, Love Without Reason, when I received another call from India asking me if I can support for surgeries for 2 children. And so after 5 years, we were able to do the surgery for those 2 children. Yeah. And that's how the ministry, the whole thing was validated. So 5 years of never giving up. I learned it from my son. At the first sign of failure, people just drop things. I did about 27 trips to India, trying to get that one surgery. Today, that one surgery has now grown to about 920 surgeries. It's gone to about 7 countries. We are operating in 7 countries. So,
I hear what happened to the son. I hear at some point, doctors said he has passed away. Take us through that particular
process.
Yes.
So as we went through this process, he started to grow, he started to do great things. He graduated from high school, and he decided that he wanted to run the organization, travel with me and see all those things. So as we were doing that, he turned 19 years old, and in the month of October 2019, this child was, I was in India, my wife and he and the other children were in the US, and he started to complain of stomach pain. And so they took him to the doctor's office. He was in so much pain, and they, after their tests and all that, they found out that he has an ulcer in his stomach. And that ulcer had, there was perforation in the stomach, and because of that, all the contents had spilled out into his gut, and it became sepsis, So they immediately took him into surgery. They did the surgery, opened up his stomach, cleaned him out, washed him out, medically. and then they put him back together. He was in the ventilator for about 4 or 5 days. And he recovered from that. As he recovered, he was in a lot of pain, but they took him into the ward, and he was recovering in the ward. And on October 17th, early morning, he was in a lot of pain. And they told us that, he's going to struggle through the whole process. Ask him to walk around, and so we started to walk around. As we walked around, he just looked into my face, and next thing I know, he passed away in my hands. It was a very emotional part, but they took him into the room, and they were attempting to do CPR and all that, and then they came and told me that he's dead, he's gone. I have been through so many situations in my life that I know that the world's report is not the final report. So I told them, no, he's not dead. Don't stop working on him. Continue to work on him, because he's not dead. And the doctors, they told me, hey, he's dead, he's gone. There's no oxygen, no pulse, no heartbeat. He's gone. And I told them that, as a man of God, I believe that he is not dead. You don't stop working on him. I am praying right here, and I want you to start working.
Well, but these are professionals.
They are professionals.
And they're telling you that the baby is gone, and the boy is gone.
I know my God. I do not accept that, because I needed to know that, this is not going to happen. I needed to know. I wanted God to let me know, because I was there. I knew that this was not his time to go. And I started to pray. And as I started to pray, I started to call him back. That's what it said. This is the spirit that left him, and we started to call him back. Anyway, my story will seem too fantastic again, but there are medical reports of that in that hospital. After 11 minutes of them working on him, his spirit came back. He came back to life. They were screaming, heartbeat, pulse, oxygen. They started to breathe. They put a ventilator in his mouth, took him into the ICU. And when they took him into the ICU, they said, this child is brain dead, because there has been no oxygen that went to his brain. 11 minutes. He was dead for 11 minutes, no oxygen to the brain. So they did the neurological, scan on him, and, they said there's no brain activity. And I say this, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. We work with doctors from many countries. These people are some of the most brilliant people in the world. Okay? And what they see in the report is what they tell us.
Yeah.
Okay? When I speak in many places, I say the things that are seen, they are the things of this world. There are things that are not seen, which are more real than the things that are seen. We go by sight. Okay? In this world, we go by what we see. But God's asking us to go beyond that to a level of faith where we go by things that are not seen. Again, when we looked at this situation, and the whole doctor community, they're amazing people, and we love them, and they actually walked through Philip for 25 surgeries. So this is not, I'm not bringing their community down. Those are the most incredible people. But when there is something beyond humanly possible, that's what I think we all need to understand. There is a God, there is a power that is over all of us, that can do beyond what we can think or imagine. Philip came back. We spent time in prayer, and his mental capability came back. He woke up. He was able to communicate with us. He was able to interact with us. And a few days later, we had a clear confirmation that Philip had made a decision to go home, and he wanted us to release him. And so we released him to the Lord. It's a long story. In our limited time, I don't have the ability to expand on all of that.
We wish we could go into another hour of discussion, but unfortunately we have to end it here. But so what are the future plans? What are your plans for Love Without Reason?
We believe that God has called us to help these children. We have a ministry of a potter repairing the faces of these children wherever they are. And it was my intention. We came to Africa in 2017. We've been in Zimbabwe, we've been in Kenya, Uganda. We are trying to go into Tanzania, Ethiopia. And I came here to Malawi to see if Malawi needs love without reason, or if we can be of service to the children of Malawi.
Definitely.
And we just wanted to bring in, if everything goes well. I'm in the phase of trying to research and trying to understand. And Pastor Felix has been, from Kairos Church, has been a great instrument in bringing us here. So we're trying to figure out a way to see if love without reason can be of help to the nation of Malawi.
Yeah.
And we wanted to come and do these cleft surgeries if it is possible. We are praying for that. We are looking into different options.
What's your motive? Are you looking for money? Is it out of the benefit of money, or what is it?
Love.
Okay, without reason.
Love without what do I gain by how much
you get a lot of money outside, and then
do what?
You get 20%, which is huge money.
You can get all the money in the world, okay, but you have a child like my Philip. No amount of money will give you peace, joy, satisfaction. Nothing. Money means nothing if you can't have a single day of peace in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Money is not a motivation. You need money. If you have to do a surgery like this, if you have to bring in doctors, you have to do all. You need the funds. You need the money. The surgeries are done free of cost for these children. Our benefit is to find a way to give life dignity to these children. If I can do that, I have kept my promise to my son.
Thank you so much. And let's end it there. That's Mr. Santhosh Mathews talking to us in the program Speak Out. It's a story that we can go into another hour. I think we'll have to end it here in this program Speak Out. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time and for sharing your own personal story
to
the nation of Malawi.
We love you guys, and I always say God is good, God loves us, and nothing is impossible with God. I just want to say that to the nation of Malawi, and I thank you, Mr. Immanuel, for giving me this opportunity and for allowing us to speak to your audiences. I hope it's a blessing.
It has been a blessing. And thank you. My regards to Pastor Felix.
Yes.
He's one of the great fellas that I've ever grown up with.
An incredible man. Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. My regards. So that's Mr. Santhosh Mathews talking to us in this program, Speak Out here on MBC. And my name is Emmanuel Thuwala. Until next time, it's goodbye and God bless.
Ilimugia ina tubano. Ndiye tambani tu amai. Mlendo ule megezenga kumambo wa chakashino. Ni mai wa fuko. Her Excellency Madam Monica Jagwera. Ndiye kulifu package tu. Kuli favored Martha. Kulinso akamuna muna Skefa. Chidansi amai kuchokera kuchitipa mpaka nsanje onse pamodzi ku BICC pa 15 Oktoba 2023. Mutu wa chaka chino amai sagonja. Amai nonse muli magula zokonda amai funsani kuwachewa nukuti ndondomeko yolipira ili motani. Ndipo amayi omwe simuli magula zokonda amayi makampanimo ndi mabungwe kapenanso kwina kulikonse pakhomo ndi 65,000 kwacha yokha basi, kapena ingogulani tebulo lathu 10 pa 650,000 kwacha yokha basi. Kuti mumve zambiri imbani pa 0886 703-159, 0888-891-194, kapena 0991-317-475. Zokonda Mai Macheza 2023. Macheza awawa di bomba. MBC, inspiring the nation.
Mtundu wina uliwonse umadziwika ndi chikhalidwe chake, magule ache, zakudya zache, mwinanso chiyankhulidwe chache.
Tikulandireni kuchokera kuno ku headquarters kwa senior chief Sobirika, mfumu yaikulu yopanda mudzi imene imapezeka pena paliponse. Onerani
programu ya Zakwathu pano pa MBC TV lachiwiri kuyambira 9 koloko usiku ndipo lachinayi 4 koloko masana. Zakwathu pa MBC TV.
MBC, inspiring the nation. The return. Entertainers of the year. Brace yourself this December.
Chiwaya. Lero tili muzi mwa Asuya ku mapiri area, mfumu yaikulu Machinjiri mboma lino la Blantyre. Tikufuna ticheze ndi anthu ena amene akukumana ndi zovuta zosiyanasiyana pa moyo wawo zimene zikutengeratu kuti inuyo mukaonera ndi kumva mavuto awo mutengepo gawo ndi kuwathandiza.
Nimakhala kuchilimba ndili ndi mwanayo ndanyamula m'manja zina yake ndi nomsaphiri. Nomsa anapezeka ni vuto la sikoselo mu 2020. Ali ndi chaka ndi miyezi. Atapezeka ndi vuto limenelo anali bwinobwino. Atakhala bwinobwino anapezeka kuti nimayendera ku kiliniki kumakalandira mankhwala kukwizi. Ndiye anazapezeka kuti anazapanga stroke chaka chatha. Mu 2022 chipangire cha stroke chokere chaka chathacho anazapezeka kuti kuchipatala ntapita anandiuza kuti mwana wanu wapanga stroke, sakuyenda, sakuyankhula, sadya china chilichonse, ndeti muyikira paipi kuti azitani azidya, ndi chokudya chake chizikhala chani, chizikhala cha mazimazi ngati mkaka ochabwino. Ndi nafusa kuti majuice bwanji, ndi anandiuza kuti juice ayi, majuice na amakhala ndi gasi, ndi muzimpasa chani, muzimpasa mkakawo. Ndi nafusa kuti mkakawo ndizilandira kuchipatala kuno, anandiuza kuti ayi mkaka muzisaka nokha, muziyenderaso kulandira mankhwala kuti kunoko ochabwino. Zitatero nimayendera kuchipatala, ineso nimagwira ntchito ku skulu ku Michiru, nimakakulupa. Ndiye nimantenga mwanayo nimampasira munthu wolera mwana wondisungira mzimayi amandisamalira mwanayo, ine kupita kuganyu kuja kukakolopa. Ikakwana half 2 abwana anga amandiuza kuti ndiziwerukako kuti ndizizamsamalira mwanayo pa khomo. Ndimulandire munthu amene amatani amapanga amamulera kuja kuti ndalama yake ikhale ngati yotani yocheperako. Ndiye ndikatero nimatani nimamulandira munthu uja. Ndikalandira kandalama kaja kamakhala kuti kena nimalipira renti pamene ndimakhala apa, kenaso nimagula chokudya chake cha iyeyo, kena kati nimamugayiraso munthu amene amatani amamulera mwana uja. Ndiye amapezeka kuti siku lina ndimakhala ndalama imene ndikugwira ndikulandira imakhala yoperewera, imakhala be yochepa, imakhala kuti nthawi zina sindikwanisa kapena ndalipereka renti chokudya cha mwana choti adye pa siku amamwa ma packet 6 ankaka ma 250 milos yachi amamwa 6 ndiye akamwa 6 amakhabe ni ndalama bei yambiri. Ndiye ndikaona choncho nimaona kuti ndikutani ndikuzuzika nayo mwanayo kwambiri. Ninapitaso kuchipatala kubwereraso kuchipatala kuja kukafusa kuti ineyo ndikuvutika be chokudya cha mwana sichi kutani si ndikumapeza moyenerera mulingo wake umene munandipasa chifukwa nandiuza kuti 6 koloko mamawa azimwa 175 ikakwana 9 koloko ndizimpasaso 175 ikakwanaso 12 koloko ndizimpasa 175 ili koloko after 3 hours ina iliyonse usiku ndi masana ndizimutani ndizimujesa chifukwa chokudya chake amadya chopanda chani chopanda mphamvu. Ndiye muzimpasa pafupi ndipo muzibweraso nayo kuti kumafizo. Ndiye nimaenda nthawi zina nimakhala kuti ndalama ndilibe nimaenda wapasi kuchoka kuchilimba ukafika kukwinzi kumafizo kucheka poso nimapitaso akandiuza madate ngati apa ninapita pa 8 apaso ndipitaso pa 20 ndimakhala kuti ndikusaka chani ndikusaka transport kumapita kukwinzi. Ndikachoka poterepo nimabwera kunyumba kuno abambo wake mwana uyu anachoka anandithawa vuto litazani litayambika la mwanayo pano pani makhala chani nimakhala ndekha nimazimira pa ine ndekha nimapanga zanga zoti ndi mwana wanga ndiziona pothandizikira. Ndiye ine kufuna kwanga kumene ndikufuna mtundu wa Malawi amene anga chingamukhuze mumtima kuti andithandize ngati mbali yacho kudya mbali ya kuchipatala ananena kuti vuto limeneli panali madokotala ena anachokera ku Lilongwe ananena kuti mwana uyu akufunika kuti ku India koma ndalama yake imene ingafunike ndi 50 milioni. Ndedalo 50 milioni sinambe ndaigwira olo 1 milioni sinambe ndaitani ndaigwira. Ndiye anandiuza kuti tiyesesa tipemphe kuboma ngati boma lingatithandize titani tikutumizani ku India. Ndiye ndikudikira zimenezo za ku India zo anapezeka kuti anazandimbira sumba doctor omwe aja kuti tikufunika kuti mubwere kuno ku Lilongwe koma ndalama yake imene ikufunika 1.4 million 1.4 naye ndilibe mulibe achibale ena kuti angakuthandizeni nauza kuti achibale ndinawo kumuza mai yanga koma sangathe kunditani kundipasa ndalama imeneyo. Ndiye anandiuza kuti chabwino ifeso tikasaka tikuta nini tikuuzani. Ndiye sana ndiimbire phone mpaka pano. Ndiye nikupempha kwanga kumene chimene ndikupempha mtundu wa Malawi amene wakhuzidwa naye mwana uyu anali wabwino amaenda amayankhula china chito samapanga yekha koma chifukwa cha vuto limene lafikali panopa ndikulephera nayo chogwira nayo mtengo ngati siku la lero ndampasa kawiri chokudya mama wandimasana palanchi ndikuti mazulo ndikazi yeseso kuti ndikasake ndrama ina kuti nditani ndipeze panopa nkaka ukudula nimagula wa omwe wa mazi omwe wa long life yo ndikagula wa mazi uja ndikuti ndizimpasa uti umene wa mchitini silingati ukwanisa kutani kugula. Anthu amene ataonere programu iyi chonde ayesesa ndithandize ndikuvutika nayo mwanayo ndipo ndikulaka kuti mwana wanga khumbo langa ndiloti mwana wanga azakhaleso bwino momwe analili pachiyambi chifukwa anali wabwino amayenda china chicho samapanga chokudya china chilicho samadya koma panopa akumadya nkaka okhaokha. Ndiye nkaka nthawi zina ine umanditani umandivuta ndikupempha kwa ofuna kwabwino ngati angakhale ndi chithandizo akhoza kundithandiza pa mwanawe ndimapezeka kuti nthawi zina sopo ndilibe momwe kumuonera pa amagona amakoza pompo amabiba pompo imafunika sopo ndichape amafunika kuti adye chokudyaso cha ine ndimakhabe ndikuzisakira koma ineyo sindikudandaula kwambiri koma chikulu mcha mwanayo kuti nditapeza thandizo la mwanayo ndikuti ineso naneso ndiona kuti ndipe
dakali mmuzi muno mwasuya kuno kuchilimba mfumu yaikulu Machinjiri pakhomo pamene tilipa